She opened the front door, and I laid my eyes for the first time on the first house that she and I would share together. Did she, like, roll up the front door? It's, like, still got the garage door on it.
I don't even want to be here. I'd rather be home doing dramatic garage door reveals.
Hello, friends. Trace amounts of science. Today, we are reading a story written by a good friend, Phantom Danica. It is called Two Legbeards, One Nest, and I'm eager to get into it, so let's get it started. Two Legbeards, One Nest. The beginning. Oh, it's a saga. Yeah, all right, sure, why not? Hello, ReddX crew. Hi, Phantom Danica. A while ago, Red mentioned that we don't spend a lot of time looking into the phenomenon of legbeard nests, and I realized that I, unfortunately, probably had a few stories under my belt that could shed light on this mostly unexplored phenomenon. And a fascinating occurrence it is indeed, and super rare, so I'm glad we get to do some kind of science today.
Science rules.
From both the experience of being a legbeard and from living with another legbeard, I figured we could explore together the phenomenon of what happens when two chronically depressed women live together for the better part of 8 years. Damn, dude, y'all spiraling out of control, making each other worse. 8 years? It's almost a decade. You had to like each other on some level. All right, I'm interested. You got me. Let's see how it goes. For science, for tendy coins, for group therapy. That's right, trauma bonding works. Let's see how bad we can get. I wanted to be a novelist for most of my life, so I'm just gonna forgo the cast list, storytell this situation, and introduce any characters as they show up if it's relevant. Blazing your own trail. Love to see it. I can never keep people straight with a cast list when I'm listening to these stories, and if it's now my story, then, well, we're gonna tell it my way. And it is your story, so go off, I guess. Who really likes cast lists anyways? Come on. That's so 2010. Without further ado, let's get into the story. My name is Danica. I'm currently a 39-year-old woman living in a medium-sized town in California. This story will chronicle some of the experiences that I've had in my 20s and early 30s as a legbeard living with another, slightly older legbeard. At the start of the story, I stood 5'5", weighed about 140 pounds, and had long brown hair that reached my waist. I have hazel eyes and a penchant for overdressing for all occasions, almost always being in a skirt or a dress, wearing a face full of makeup, and being in high heels. To this day, I do not leave my house without a cat's eye and at least 3-inch heels. I gotta be honest with you, bro, that sounds like a lot of effort, but if it makes you feel good, then it makes you feel good, you know? Also, the ridiculously long hair, I don't understand how that can work in a legbeard nest, you know? It's gonna get caught up in some sticky stuff and it's over. When I was 20, I started my second ever job, listing industrial spare parts on eBay.
It's a living.
A local company that sold items wholesale to stores across the country had a side hustle where they would buy parts from a nearby Air Force base and resell those items on eBay. Is that legal? As long as Uncle Sam don't look too closely, I guess it is. At the time of interviewing for this position, I worked as a waitress at my local Denny's, and I listed books for my parents on Amazon for their online third-party book business. Damn, dude, it's like a million different hustles. You're kind of making me think that I should hustle harder outside the YouTube channel, but I don't know. Anyway, on my parents' side of things, my mom worked for a local newspaper company, and my dad was retired due to complications with emphysema. Sucks, bro. Them death sticks will get you. But they got a hold on me too right now, so I get it. Not emphysema. I hope I don't get emphysema. My God! Anyway, my mom decided she wanted to clean off her bookshelves one day to get rid of the books that she no longer read. And as she sold them, my father saw that this could be a fairly lucrative business for them to run together. Starting from the time that I was about 16, they started selling books on eBay, Amazon, and half.com, getting their product from garage sales, swap meets, and local friends of the library book sales. I mean, you get some books for a nickel at a garage sale. Then you turn around and sell it for $2 in poor condition on Amazon. I mean, shipping's probably eating into some of your profits there. But overall, hell yeah, if you can move enough volume, that's a great hustle. They roped me into helping them with this venture from the time they started it, so I felt fairly confident about my abilities to be able to list parts on eBay for this local company when I realized I needed to escape Denny's and find a new base of employment. I mean, yeah, I love Denny's, but I feel bad for the people working there, honestly. I should go back to the Denny's in Burbank, California and tip the waitresses that I never tipped when I was 16 to 20. I didn't have no money, I'm sorry. Now I do. Take some of it. I have written a few Reddit stories about my adventures in waitressing and would be happy to cross-post some tales from your server if anyone's interested in that side adventure. Yeah, why not? We've done it once before, I think. The long and short of it, though, is that waitressing sucks. And I needed to get out of that situation. But the difference here between you and many others, OP, is that you actually made moves to get up and out. So I interviewed for a job, showing up at a nondescript business with no visible markers for it from the street, on a wooden bench, on a stair landing to the street, with saloon-style swinging doors to the right of me and a mural depicting a fantasy landscape with a tiny purple dragon being its main character to my left. The owner of the business, let's call him Robert, was an older man in his late 50s or early 60s. He wore black jeans, a blue Stetson shirt, a black vest, and heavy black work boots. He had his long gray hair pulled back into a ponytail that rested over his shoulder blades, and a thick gray mustache rested over his lips. All he's really missed is the cowboy hat, honestly. Maybe a little six-shooter on the hip. Bam, bam! He spoke quickly in the interviews, asking me of my knowledge of many subjects that were not limited to the task of eBay listings, political leanings, what I was studying at school, World War II knowledge. It's been nearly 20 years. I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember feeling like I was in the crossfire during that conversation, completely unprepared for the whirlwind of topics and strong personality that I faced down, and not wholly convinced that I didn't sound like an idiot as I tried to hold my own in that conversation. I'm sure you did fine. Everybody's stupid on some level when they're talking to each other, you know? He's probably got his own insecurities about the conversation while it's going on. Although the fact that he asked you about your political leanings, yeah, that's interesting. I'd really try to get his goat. I'd be like, well, I think we should reinstitute a monarchy. Elect me as king. I'll lead us to victory, Robert. He'd probably love it. At the end of half an hour, Robert finally said, well, the job's between you and another person, and I like you better than that guy. Yeah, how much notice would you have to give your current employer? I told him the customary 2 weeks, positively brimming with excitement over the possibility of escaping my waitressing hell. My self-confidence was, and is, pretty shit. I didn't think that I could get a better job than I currently had. I didn't think I was smart enough for it, talented enough for it, worthy enough for it. Nah, those are just lies we tell ourselves in order to hold ourselves down. If you want it and pursue it, you can get it. The pursuing part is very important, okay? Lots of people want but never pursue. Anyway, with the answer of my 2-week notice, Robert hired me on the spot. I had no idea at the time how much starting this job would change my life. It does work that way. In many ways, I'm extremely grateful for the 9.5 years that I worked for them. The company saw me through many of the worst experiences of my life and taught me how to be a better, stronger person. They became a second family, one that I celebrated more than a few holidays with. The job and the family also brought out the absolute worst in me. As low as my self-confidence was when I started with them, it was so much lower when I left them almost a decade later. Damn, what the hell happened? Between then and now, something's gone terribly wrong. I'm not saying that a job should be the most fulfilling thing in your life. The most you should be able to do is just like stomach it, but it really does help if they make you feel valued, you know? When I was an inventory manager at that vitamin company, I only spent like 3-4 years with them max because, yeah, I was shit on basically the entire time. I didn't even give him 2 weeks. I just stopped showing up to work, went to editing school. I don't need this shit. Although 4 years is a long time for me. I don't think I've ever held a job for a decade. We'll see how the YouTube thing goes, I guess. Anyway, I worked the part-time job for the first 2 weeks while going to our local community college and still balancing my Denny's hours. Robert was the owner of the company, and his daughter, Kelly, acted as the general manager. Oh my god, it's Kelly. Oh my god, shoes.
These shoes rule. These shoes suck.
It is at this time, ladies and gentlemen, that I will introduce you to the second Legbeard of this story. I guess, yeah, owner's daughter kind of fits the bill, probably slightly entitled. But surely it couldn't be that terrible. Surely. He stuck it out for a decade. So Kelly was around 28 when I first got hired to work for her family's business. She stood 5'11" tall. It's a big girl. With shoulder-length grown hair, brown eyes, and weighed about 200 pounds. Yes, a real big girl. She often wore band t-shirts, colorful and patterned knee-high socks, a bandana on her head, jean skirts, and ballet flats. Yeah, we're making some interesting choices there, I guess. When I first started out for the company, I had a small desk directly on the other side of the white chipped saloon doors, and Kelly had a desk about 10 feet behind me. My job description was to locate the cart that has eBay-worthy items on it, identify what the item was, circuit breaker valve, airplane wing, some sort of gauge, and then determine if it had any value by researching it online. I'd write up a description in an app called Turbo Lister to prep the sale. Oh, my mom used to use this when she was selling swimsuits. She'd go to the thrift store and get like brand name swimwear. Mark it up 400 times, throw it online. I am intimately familiar with Turbo Lister and intimately familiar with every thrift store in our area as we spent 6 hours there. I know a lot about some swimsuits from the early 2000s. I cannot imagine trying to look up random parts that I don't even know what they're supposed to do. I guess you find the product number on it and pop it into Google. OP says I would then get Robert's approval for the description of these items and the pricing. I would list the items based upon Robert's improvements, manage the sales, and relisting of any items from the batch that I created and listed. It seemed easy, but I was very new to desk work, and they couldn't tell for a long time if they were actually going to keep me. I was supposed to get a review after 2 weeks, but it took them 2 months to decide if my middling efforts were actually worth it. Damn, that's pretty rough, actually. you need to get in there and just slam your dick through the boss's table. Like, bam! I need some confirmation on if I'm gonna be working here next week. My life depends on it. They'll either respect your gumption and say, wow, she's some upper management material, or they'll let you go on the spot, and then you can go back to Denny's, I guess. You know what? Actually, it's probably not the move to make. You tried your best, and that's the most I could ask from you. It took a lot more time for Kelly to even begin to interact with me. Oh, she real introvert, huh? Her attention was split between the online business that I worked for and her responsibilities as the manager of one of the owner's 3 retail businesses in town. Even Dad, out here hustling for real. I don't think I'll ever be this person, and I think that's okay. And the business that I worked at was almost not known in our town, but the other 3 were local institutions. It often felt like I was on an island by myself in those early days. Everyone else in the company worked on the company's actual website. I was the only employee dedicated to the owner's side interest of random industrial parts he could buy from the Air Force Base and from the local university. I mean, yeah, at a certain point, if everything's going well, why not indulge a little bit? He does know what he's buying, though, right? He has to. He expects this to be successful. Over the next year, however, Kelly would begin to soften towards OP and would give OP some side projects to work on, namely listing the company's products on Amazon and eBay. I mean, yeah, it's roughly the same work. It makes sense. And this is how we integrate. This is how we become unfireable. Not a thing that actually exists, by the way. But OP says Kelly did become someone that I truly looked it up to and respected. She had a magnetic personality, vivacious, and as she called it, delightful. I wanted her to like me nearly as much as I liked her. I mean, she enjoys being the center of attention. That's why she has like the colorful socks and whatnot. That's why I was a little bit surprised when they revealed like, oh, she's an introvert, but I think I just misread it as she's really busy all the time, just like her father. But yeah, part of that is being a social butterfly, knowing how to make connections and whatnot. I don't know if I trust it 100%, especially considering she's featuring in a Legbeard saga. In one particularly cringy move on my part, I made her a dessert for her 29th birthday. I'd been at the company for about a year at that point, and I desperately wanted her approval. I made her a faux tiramisu from angel food cake, vanilla pudding, amaretto coffee, and whipped cream. She seemed so unimpressed and disinterested in my efforts that it crushed my soul. Now, this is all part of the process. She's going to break you down and build you up in her own image. It's like boot camp, but for eBay listings. I had no idea at the time that she rarely ate any meals outside of dinner, and that presenting her a dessert wouldn't be the way to win her approval. What you really gotta do to impress her is offer her a turnkey business. Here is your own car wash. She would be so delighted.
No buckets! You pay for spray! No use free water!
So about a month or so later, I had a falling out with my dad. I still lived at home at the time, the textbook example of Peter Pan syndrome. I never wanted to grow up. I didn't want to pay bills. I didn't want to live on my own. I didn't want a job. I never wanted to drive. I didn't want responsibility. I wanted to sit in my bedroom and write and escape into the worlds that I created. I'm friends with somebody in real life that's doing that currently, and I mean, it is frustrating to watch, but also you get it figured out eventually. Either a defining moment that pushes one out of the nest, or your parents die. And I'm pretty sure those people just become homeless. Ugh. I don't know what started the fight between my dad and I. There never needed to be a real reason for him to start yelling at anyone in the family. If you looked at him wrong, the man would blow a gasket. And I had a tendency to often look at him wrong. That, like, sarcastic self-blaming. That's how you know this is, like, real-life experiences right now. The cause for our argument had something to do with me still living at home, for he screamed at me, "If you're so unhappy living here, you can move out because nobody wants you here." There are some moments that are just burned into your psyche. Those things that you hear even in your sleep. He screamed this at me while I was getting ready for work. I drove myself a couple miles to work, crying, while I clocked in on the comically antiquated punch walk clock, a hysterical mess, just tears streaming down my face, while I struggled to come to terms that my dad didn't consider me wanted in my family. Yeah, that's not something you used to say to kids. Sometimes you get angry, frustrated, whatever, it's best to walk away. Don't say anything that you can't take back. He didn't actually mean nobody wants you here. He just means they want you to get your life together. You know, fly the nest, little bird. At least I hope that's what he meant. We've had a strained relationship for most of my life, but I had never felt unwanted by him before. Kelly intercepted me on my way to my desk and asked me what had happened. She towered above me, even in the 3-inch heels that I wore, and between my shuddering breaths, I let her know of the fight that I had with my dad, how I needed to get out of that house, and how I didn't know what to do. This is like the opening scene from Fight Club, isn't it?
Bob had bitch tits.
She seemed conflicted for a moment, as if weighing her pros and cons. "Both of my roommates have recently moved out," she finally said. "I have an open room if you want. The house isn't much, but like it's not with your dad." I nodded, so relieved that magical thinking had procured me with a living situation just like that. We agreed that she would take me over to the house later that night, and we could see if I actually wanted to move in with her. It's a precarious situation. I've seen this unfold before. And also you're mixing employment and home life. I don't know. Maybe if it's just to help get your foot on the ladder. But just know it is fraught with potential problems. How unorthodox. Not uncouth, just unorthodox. So later that evening, her admission of the house not being much was proven all too real as I got into her car and she drove me the 3 blocks to her house. The house was down a short red brick driveway tucked behind another house that was split into 2 units. Kelly explained to me as she parked her red 1990s Ford hatchback with a dented front end into a parking space near the house that her house had originally been a garage for the front house that had been converted into a back house at some point. It made the architecture interesting. She opened the front door and I laid my eyes for the first time on the first house that she and I would share together. Did she roll up the front door? It's still got the garage door on it.
I don't even want to be here. I'd rather be home doing dramatic garage door reveals.
Kind of baller, actually. I'm gonna do that. It gets a little drafty, but hey, at least the front door rolls up. The common spaces were made up of what was once the garage. A barrier ran vertically down the length of the room, separating out a kitchen and a living room in equal halves. The living room had stained brown carpeting, a beat-up wooden coffee table, and a maroon, green, and blue plaid couch that faced into the kitchen. A pile of junk boxes blocked the entrance to the hall closet that stored even more of Kelly's stuff. The wooden table was covered in paper and boxes. To the right of the couch, underneath a built-in bookshelf and cabinets, which were full of Kelly's items also, was an old 1970s style TV, large and a piece of furniture in its own right. Well, my first thought is fire hazard. I got old electronics and all these papers sitting around. Oh, great. Yeah. The shape of the living room made it impossible to have the couch facing the TV. If the couch were to face where the TV was placed, well, then it would spill into the kitchen. Moving the TV would have it in the walkway between the living room and the dining room, and there would be no electrical outlet. This fatal flaw of a living room layout really highlighted that the main areas of the house were just a garage, split down the center, with no thought given to functionality. So you have to turn your head to look at the TV the whole time? We should just get a wall-mounted TV, you know? A few $100 to upgrade your quality of life to that level, and there'll be so much more room for activities.
Look at all this floor space. So much aerobics in here. So many activities.
The kitchen had an off-white linoleum flooring that looked like it hadn't been mopped in quite a while. The small counter space had dishes stacked on it, and the sink was full. The stove had some pots and pans on it, and the trash can in the center of the room was not quite overflowing onto the floor, but it could definitely stand being dumped. Not the most putrid thing we've ever seen, but I'm sure it'll get worse. To the right of the kitchen was a small space that had a 1950s-style gray dining room table that was covered in more random papers, boxes, and clothing. Behind the table was a second door that led outside to the additional parking spaces. I took it all in. Not sure what I was expecting, but I wasn't entirely put off by the situation. I mean, at first glance, yeah, it's not terrible. How much are you paying for it? Or does it come free with the job? Well, then you'll never be able to quit that job. I don't know. Like I said, it's fraught with problems. Super sorry, it's messy, Kelly said as she shut the door behind her. I just wasn't expecting to show the place today. No worries, I replied. I'm not exactly the tidiest person. Concern flittered across her face. She would later tell me that she realized that putting 2 people who weren't necessarily the tidiest in the same house together had the potential to lead to a very bad situation. And she was right to worry about that. Oh my God. After a certain point, we're just gonna have to burn the garage to the ground. We'll start over from scratch. Both rooms are open right now, she explained as she crossed the living room and led me to a hallway. My room is here, she showed me, gesturing to a closed room that was locked with a deadbolt. One of my former friends that lived here broke into my room and sold my CDs back to our store, she said, referencing the used music store that her family owns as she undid the deadbolt. Since then, I just kept it deadbolted when I'm not home. Damn, that is another problem with having some money, isn't it? People will come at you in order to get it. Buddy up, hey, I'm your best friend, I stole your CDs! What'd you get away with, like, between $40 and $60? I'm not that impressed. Also, we're not friends anymore. The smell of stale cigarette smoke wafted out of her room as she opened the door. Looking around me, I noticed a litter box at the end of the hallway. I knew she had a cat, and she was aware that I had my own middle-aged calico cat that I would be bringing with me if I moved in with her. Oh, it's still an if, is it? A litter box in the hallway was of little concern to me. I'd had a litter box in my bedroom for the past 10 years and was well and truly noseblind to cat smells. The hallway itself had random items lined up in it next to the walls. Boxes, shoes, clothes, random power tools. I caught a glimpse of Kelly's room as she tossed her purse on her unmade queen-sized bed. A haze of smoke hung in the air, even though she hadn't been in the room all day. There was a dresser at the foot of her bed that had her TV on top of it, and a running series of empty and near-empty 40-ounce bottles of Bud Light. There was a small bedside table next to her bed that had a bong, an ashtray, and some more 40s in various stages of consumption. What a terrifying sight. Now we know why Kelly can't move out of the garage. Clearly she's allowing her addictions to consume her. It's fine to, have a little bit now and then. But to me, it looks like this is what you're doing every single day. OP says, I couldn't really judge, thinking of my own home and my parents' mobile home. I didn't drink at the time, but my room was covered in Diet Coke cans, clothing, and trash. I knew what it was like to impromptu have someone in your house, and I would never judge someone for that. I mean, Bud Light versus Diet Coke. But ReddX, the phenylphalenes! Yeah, I know. It's all just different kinds of poisons. Moderation is the key, but even then I'd be a hypocrite. So you know what? Be an alcoholic if you want. She seems like a functional alcoholic at the very least. I wind down from my day with 80 ounces of beer. What do you want? What do you want from me? I don't know. Liver functions? If it weren't for my own beardery and want to leave my parents' home, well, the alarm bells would likely have been ringing. Yeah, I'm hearing them a little. Leaving her room, she led me to a room next door to hers, and that was at the opposite end of the hall as the litter box. This is one of the rooms. It mirrors mine, so your closet's in there, she said, pointing to a wooden door, and mine's on the opposite side. The room itself was small and had a step down into it. A window was on my right side and the closet to my left. The carpet looked fairly clean, and I envisioned where I could put my things. Yeah, I could make this work. Come on, OP. You can make a cardboard box work. Will you enjoy it? Is it the type of place you can come home from a long day of work and just unwind in? I need a little bit more than make this work, is all I'm saying. Pulling my attention away from the room, she led me in the other direction, past the litter box. The bathroom's in here, she said, as she indicated a no-frills bathroom with a tub, sink, and toilet. We went down another step, and we were in a strange sunroom area that only measured about 10 by 10. The room had a yellow 1970s velour armchair, a wicker chair with a pink seat pad, a large 3-foot-tall blue and yellow lava lamp, and various other items in it. Kelly continued the tour. This is the pimp room. It's just a catch-all for all of the roommates' extra stuff that doesn't, fit in their rooms. The benefits of this bedroom, she said as she gestured to a door off to the side of said pimp room. It's that it's closer to the bathroom, and you get the bonus of the pimp room. It's weird to hang out in front of your roommate's door, so people don't usually come out here. The third roommate usually takes advantage of this. Yeah, you want to be a pimp or not, you got to pay 90% of the rent. Then you get the pimp room. OP says, I could see that, and I considered the advantages of the third bedroom as she opened the door. Immediately, I frowned. This room, unlike the other room I had just looked at, was mostly wooden walled and had a very small closet. It was also significantly smaller in size to the other room. The mobile home my parents owned had wood paneling in almost every room, and I couldn't stand it. The wood ate any light and was just so depressing. The bonus sunroom off of this third bedroom could not possibly make up for what a wooden room and a small closet would do to my mental health. Oh, come on, OP. You want to be a pimp, don't you? Think about the lava lamp.
His jiggling is almost hypnotic.
Yes, it's like a lava lamp.
OP says, I think I like the other room better. I stated as we left the third bedroom. A fat black cat with one good eye and one hazy dripping eye came into the pimp room and stretched out on the ground. Immediately, I stooped down to pet the baby and inquired about her eye. This is Ramona. I named her after a Sublime song. She has eye herpes, Kelly explained. I'd never heard of cats getting herpes, let alone eye herpes before. I also didn't know Sublime. Dude, living in California? What? I'm pretty sure that's compulsory music education for any Californian. I listened to musicals, 1960s folk rock and new rock like System of a Down and Godsmack. Those were all great choices too, but I started listening to a lot of Sublime since I moved out to the islands. Wifey really likes it. Little reggae bent to it. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, Kelly says, it's not contagious. She just can't see out of that eye. Poor baby, I said as I rubbed Ramona's fat belly and she purred beneath my hand. If you're interested in the room, it's $433 a month plus utilities. I'm gonna put an ad on Craigslist and find another roommate, and everyone can move in starting on the 1st. There are moments that change the course of your life. I'm definitely interested, I said, as I looked up from the attention I doted upon Ramona. It's so close to work, and it would really save me from a bad situation. Yeah, out of the frying pan and into the fire, isn't it? Great, Kelly said with a smile as she walked us back to the living room. Then I'll just place the ad for the third room. Tony, our landlord, will want the first month and a deposit of the same amount on the 1st. I nodded, feeling the uncertainty I had during this conversation. $433 was not a lot of money, but I made minimum wage at the time, $6.75 an hour. Having $866 in a couple of weeks was going to be slightly harder to pull. Yeah, time to sell some shit. You're good at the eBay thing, you know? You gotta just lean in where you're able. I definitely remember what it was like to make minimum wage, and yeah, this wasn't happening without some angel benefactors, you know? Still, the benefit of not living with my parents would be worth it. What could possibly go wrong? Yes, what indeed? We'll have to find out in the next part, I guess. I'll leave it there for now, folks. Kelly and I lived together for about 8 years in 2 different houses, and we had many a misadventure together before our paths split. I'm hoping I can chronicle some of the good times as well as some of the bad, while giving a fair and honest assessment of both of our strengths and failings. It's important to remember that while I did naively move into a Legbeard nest, I'm not a blameless victim in what our living situation will become. It is, after all, 2 Legbeards, 1 nest. And I heartily welcome any and all misadventures, of course. I'm looking forward to see what happens in this story. Kelly and OP seem halfway functional. They're not terminal Legbeards. They just have some things that could be worked on. A lot of things that could be worked on. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode, friends. Like, comment, sub if you did. Join up on the Patreon, maybe the YouTube memberships. I do appreciate that. Helps me to get through every single month. If you can't do it, no worries. Just thanks for watching, you know. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, bye-bye. Go ahead, cut them open. It's gonna be be fine. It's gonna be fine.